Female gametes are called eggs. They come in different sizes, depending on the species they are derived from. Birds lay large eggs with a hard shell. Here you can see a quail egg, a chicken egg, a duck egg, and a goose egg. Chicken eggs are huge, but most of it is the yellow yolk. The actual female genetic material, or the oocyte, is the small white spot that you can sometimes see in the yolk when you crack a chicken's egg. We can all recognize frog spawn. Frog eggs are also huge. We can see the eggs, black spots surrounded by translucent yolk, with the naked eye. Another name for the egg is oocyte. While frog and chicken eggs are deposited outside of the body, mammalian oocytes grow and mature inside the body, in the ovarian follicle, and they contain much less yolk than eggs from frogs or chickens. But you can still see them with the naked eye if they are collected from follicles on an ovary. They are about the size of the full stop at the end of a sentence, or 1/10 of a millimetre. In order to be fertilized, the oocyte has to be mature. But mature oocytes are rare and precious. They are only released at ovulation, during the fertile lifespan of a mammal. It takes a long time for an oocyte to reach the mature stage. The process starts during fetal life and is completed long before the 40 weeks of human pregnancy is complete. In fact, the number of oocytes will have diminished by the time a baby girl is born. At birth, a baby girl will have 1 to 2 million immature oocytes in her ovaries. By the time a girl has become a young woman, the number will have decreased to 300,000. Typically, at about 12 years of age, when a girl has reached puberty, she will have the first ovulation of a mature oocyte. If we count fetal life, this first mature oocyte will have taken 12 years to reach that stage. The girl will continue to ovulate and release one mature oocyte each menstrual cycle for maybe another 40 years, until she reaches menopause. The last mature oocyte to be ovulated was formed more than 50 years earlier. All of this will be regulated by hormonal changes during the menstrual cycle in women and during the estrous cycle in female animals. The ovary is the female gonad, which contains eggs, or oocytes. Here we see a diagram of a mammalian ovary, containing several follicles. The follicles are at different stages of development. All contain immature oocytes, except for the follicle on the far right. This is an ovulating follicle, and it is releasing a single mature oocyte at ovulation. It takes several months for a follicle to develop from the primordial follicle stage labelled 1, progressing through the primary, secondary and antral follicle stages, before finally reaching the final or terminal stage of development, which ends with ovulation. The ovary contains thousands of follicles at different stages of development. The majority of follicles are at the resting primordial stage, which consists of a flattened layer of granulosa cells surrounding a round oocyte, which contains a large concentrically located nucleus. Upon activation, the granulosa cells restructure to a cuboidal shape and begin to proliferate, forming many layers of cells around the oocyte. At the same time, the oocyte begins to grow in diameter, and the organelles within the oocyte cytoplasm increase in number, restructure, and migrate towards the edge of the oocyte. It takes almost 4 months for an oocyte inside a preantral follicle to reach its fully grown size. At the start, the oocyte and follicle grow in parallel. This continues until the follicle diameter reaches 3 millimeters, and the oocyte within it has reached about 120 micrometers. Follicle growth is driven by follicle-stimulating hormone. Antral follicles grow and grow until one follicle becomes dominant and will develop into the pre-ovulatory follicle. It is the largest follicle and can reach a pre-ovulatory size of 15 to 20 millimeters in humans and cattle, or even 35 millimeters in horses. This is the preovulatory follicle. In the centre we recognize the fully grown oocyte. Even at this advanced stage, the oocyte is still immature. 24 hours before ovulation, there is a surge in the release of luteinizing hormone, or LH, by the brain. LH is transported in the bloodstream to the ovary, where it induces maturation and progression to metaphase 2 in the oocyte of the dominant follicle. Metaphase 2 is the stage of meiosis at which the oocyte can be fertilized. Finally, ovulation occurs and the mature oocyte is released into the oviduct. If capacitated spermatozoa are present in the oviduct, the oocyte will be readily fertilized upon interacting with sperm. In order for the oocyte to be fertilized by the sperm, the number of chromosomes have to be halved to form a diploid embryo. We did not cover this before, but this process is called meiosis, and most of it happens during the final hours before fertilization. The immature oocyte is blocked in the prophase of meiosis, the germinal vesicle or GV stage. When the LH surge takes place during the estrous or menstrual cycle, meiosis that has been blocked for so many years resumes. The first sign that meiosis 1 has resumed is the breakdown of the germinal vesicle, GVBD. The nuclear membrane disappears and the loose thread-like chromatin is packed into chromosomes in order to progress to metaphase 1. During the first metaphase, the paired chromosomes are aligned along a metaphase plate. They are attached to their retrospective centromeres by spindle fibres. At anaphase 1, the chromosomes begin separating, and half of the chromosomal material is lost by polar body extrusion during telophase 1. Once the first polar body is extruded, ovulation occurs and the oocyte is then mature. She is at metaphase 2, haploid, and ready to be fertilized. Here's another image of the difference between the immature diploid GV oocyte and the mature haploid M2 oocyte. Remember that this reduction of the chromosome number is important for obtaining a normal diploid individual after fertilization. Also, the sperm cells are produced by meiosis and are haploid. The fusion of two haploid gametes will lead to a diploid zygote. In this short animation, we have shown how mammalian oocytes grow and mature. Of course, there are still many differences between species. Here we can observe bovine oocytes. On the left, we see an immature oocyte surrounded by a compact cumulus, and on the right, a mature oocyte surrounded by expanded cumulus. You can appreciate the dark cytoplasm of this oocyte, which is typical for oocytes of domestic mammals, which all contain a lot of dark lipids. However, oocytes of mouse and humans are very light and translucent in colour. In many mammals, including human and cattle, ovulation of a mature oocyte happens 24 hours after the LH surge, during every cycle when the preovulatory follicle is present. However, there are always exceptions to this rule. Cats, rabbits and mink are induced ovulators. This means they ovulate in response to the act of mating, which induces the LH surge. In llamas and alpacas, the LH surge and ovulation is triggered by a factor in the seminal plasma of the male. The elephant has 2 LH surges instead of 1, and dogs ovulate immature oocytes, which need another 2 to 3 days in the oviduct to mature. Finally, the horse has an ovary that has a completely different shape to that of other mammals. It looks like it has been turned inside out. With this, we hope you have a first impression of the amazing qualities of the oocyte and how fine-tuned and well orchestrated this cell has become in order to be able to initiate life.